So I'm going to actually just sit here, if you don't mind. I tend to walk around a bit, but I'm not going to do that because if I stay in one place, the recording's nice and even for the online students. And they do sort of tell me occasionally, well, I can't hear what you're saying because you wander around the back of the room and can't hear a thing. So just to try and keep the volume even for them, I'm going to try and stay in one place for most of this, if you don't mind. So I'm going to sit down. We probably don't mind. You guys are sitting down after all, so yeah. I guess it works for everybody. All right. So I guess we'll start off really with why bother with this? Why mobile apps? And what are mobile devices and OSs and development tools, which there's quite a few, obviously. But yeah, you don't actually have to Google this, but it's kind of interesting if you think, well, you know, why is this actually important? Well, let's see. So I think all of you guys should be doing the Bachelor's of Computer Science, yeah? No? Okay, actually, some of you guys are doing cyber, right, and doing this as an elective. Or possibly doing IT and doing this as an elective. There we go, to cover everybody. Anybody not doing any one of cyber or computer science or IT? Just thought I'd check because occasionally you get people that come from a different discipline completely and they sort of say, hey, how do I do this? Am I able to deal with it? Because you notice I don't think it has any prerequisites. So technically, you could not have done programming principles and actually successfully complete this. So we sort of start at the bottom with Lua and say, let's look at some basic constructs. And if you've done Python, you'd say, swimmingly, that's easy, not a problem. But if you haven't done any language at all, you'd be saying, that's a bit more of a steeper learning curve. Just thought I'd ask. It's okay. I mean, you know, it's certainly completable by anybody, I think. Anyway, so why is this actually important? Well, let's see. One answer might be because you like building mobile apps, or you want to learn how to build a mobile app. They're laudable objectives, I suppose. Although probably the reason you want to do this is because you want to build the next killer app, right? And make gazillions of dollars. Of course you do. That's why you're here, right? And if you think you're here for some sort of unified, laudable, philosophical reason, then no problem. I've got a contract you can sign to sign all of your app rights to me because yeah, of course you're here to make. Why wouldn't you want to make money at it? There's nothing wrong with having money, people. Remember, you guys are poor students mostly, so you know having money is a good thing. Not too much, but a little. Because remember, as some of you guys know, I want you to keep on and do honours and do some magic things, particularly in the cyber area. So you might be thinking, hang on a minute, I'm a computer scientist, so what do I do cyber for? Because a lot of the problem space in cyber at the moment relies a lot on conventional computer science, which you guys can do in spades. So you can take a job programming if you want, or you can take a job in cyber which pays a heap more, and is an interesting domain to work in. Speaking as a developer who shifted to the dark side of cyber, I can attest to that. It's really interesting. Yes. Well, anyway, hopefully I'll have some good news for you guys in about 3 weeks' time about that. We'll see. Anyway, I'm talking about future scholarships and such like. Anyway, so why mobile apps? Because we want to make money at doing something. Because don't forget, thinking about apps. So what if I said to you, hey, I've got this different app where I'm going to actually get people to share things about their lives and post stuff on a social media app. And they're going to post photographs of themselves and being stupid, which will cause lots of fun for their future employers. And you know, they'll tell intimate secrets to the whole world about their lives. And I'll say, we can adware that and we can on-sell it and we can on-sell the data to other people and they'll just give it to us for free. Now, if I told you that 14 years ago, you would have said, no one's going to do that. That's stupid. I'm just copying Facebook, obviously, right? Okay. And look at Facebook now. That's exactly what people do. How about that? So what about iPhones? The iPhone's 10 years old now, right? So if we go back 11 years, 12 years, what was the biggest phone around? Probably would have been the Nokia 3310, right? Because you could do cool things, right? You could make phone calls and you could send text messages. And now look at Nokia in that game. Where is Nokia in the sort of smartphone game? Kind of missed that one, didn't they? Whereas Apple to give them their due, really picked that wave, didn't they? They said, this is a cool thing, people will do this. And they still do pretty well out of it. Okay. So Apple are quite good at picking those trends and building on them. I'll give them that. They're very good at that. They did it with this guy. They've been doing that since 1984, by the way. So they've had a bit of a trend in being able to do that quite well. So sometimes it's their own tech and sometimes it's someone else's that they've picked up on. So good for them. Although you have to say, why isn't the iPhone 7 better than what it is? Because it's not that different to a 6, really. That's a whole different rant, though. So we're not going to go there. That's a whole different thing. But anybody who's got an iPhone will say, come on. Why doesn't it have a 40 megapixel camera? Mind you, anybody's got the phones. Which is one's a 40 megapixel camera? Is that? It's a Nokia, isn't it? Yeah. And it's great. I know someone that's got one. It's magic. So how many photos do you get to store on your phone? About 2 before it just fills up. But it's great. The resolution is really that good. It's wonderful. Anyway, not to worry. You've got to wonder why Apple hasn't got that. Maybe that's coming in the new one. Who knows? There's a couple of things they could have actually upscaled quite a bit, but chose not to for whatever reason. Guess we'll find out what they do next. Soonish. Okay. So, so 10 years ago, and now look what you do with them. So, I found a stat the other day that was a survey done in January this year talking about how many people are on the internet and all that sort of thing. There's something like 3-point-something billion people who actually use the internet every day or whatever, or during some time period. And that wasn't the interesting stat. The interesting bit was that 46% of those people use a phone to do that. So the profile is changing somewhat. It's not people using computers at home or computers at work or whatever. Half those people basically live their lives on their phone. Which I guess is good if you're a developer. You're sort of saying, hey, I'm developing for smartphones or tablets or whatever. That's not a bad market to be in. That says you've got a market out there potentially. If no one actually bothered to use their phone for that sort of access, you'd say, who's going to buy this? Why would I want to develop a phone app? So that says the market's actually there. Also, I suppose, not all the apps you see are 99 cents, right? So I've seen apps that sell for $25. You might think, gee, no one would buy that for $25. People do. Depends what the market is. If it's a sort of segmented market, I suppose, as a market people say, or a sort of a target market that would value that app. It's a pretty cool idea, by the way. You got sort of access directly to certain people in a certain genre where you say, I could talk directly to that person. How cool is that? So it's worth $25 to anybody who's in that. So it's actually a musical thing. So if you're into that, you'd say, oh, I'll have that. And if you're not, you'd say, so what, I suppose. So it's a very targeted thing. But I imagine we look for more things like that where people would charge more for the service or for the app or both, depending on how they do it on the business model, but be very targeted to who's going to. The people that see value in it straight away. Anyway, so we're also about that. So the 46% of people, that's pretty good actually. It's good for us anyway in terms of development. What else? So, the stat from last year was 2 billion smartphone users, at least. Probably more now. Okay. The big thing, I suppose, is not so much the number of users, but the app economy. US dollars 50 billion. Not bad, hey? And something like 10% of all IT jobs, at least in this country. So definitely a growing market. And if you're going to sell something to someone, a growing market's a good place to be in, I would think, okay? Which is why I suppose, as I said, Corona's got some competitors now in terms of Xamarin and PhoneGap and whatnot in terms of development. And look, there's nothing wrong with actually developing stuff in Objective-C or Swift or whatever, or developing stuff in Java if you must. That's fine. It's just that from a single code base point of view, developing stuff in one of those multi-platform kits like Corona is a pretty good deal. I guess the downside, you should say, well, what about some special features of blah that I want to use that might not be available through that SDK? There is a bit of a trade-off there, okay? I've not yet found that to be a problem. I know that I had a team of students who actually won a national award a couple of years ago who developed an app in Corona, obviously for multi-platform. And we were wondering a bit, gee, well, when you get to the point about the actual bit about timing things and making sure you get accurate results for the test they actually ran on the app. We were wondering whether Corona would actually handle that, and whether we actually needed to actually split it and go Objective-C in Java. As it turned out, it was fine. It was really good at that sort of thing. It was more challenging at the time about getting access to databases via cloud services. But that's actually been addressed since in a new version of the SDK. But yeah, it didn't have any time lag. You'd have to go to a more native language, if you like, to get things to happen faster. It worked pretty well. And I guess Corona has got a bit of a head start on the others because, what's it? Angry Birds is written in Corona, yeah? Annoying but true. So there you go. So it definitely is at the forefront, and it's got a fairly active user forum too. So, you know, if you've got a question, you can post something like Corona forum and people will actually respond to you. For various, like any forum, various responses from question mark to here's an answer to why you're asking that question, do it yourself sort of stuff. You get all sorts of people, but that's part of the fun of being on forum, I suppose. So the market itself is definitely growing. So I guess why do people actually bother with this stuff? Well, because we were joking a bit before about the old Nokia, right? They are making a bit of a comeback, you know, so you can buy them now. And why is that? So what do you think, actually, seriously, why do you think the Nokia 332010, whatever it is making a comeback? Any idea?
Nostalgia?
Nostalgia, could be. People long for the old days. That's right. I'd love to have a Macintosh 128 so I could just sit there swapping floppy disks for half an hour just to load up Word. You're dead right. Nostalgic. There's something about that. But some people do actually, you know, I do know one of the ex-students here actually has an old Macintosh, and I said they bring it out every year, fire it up, play a game, make sure it works, and put it back in its cover. So I guess, you know, you might want to save it as a sort of a historical piece, maybe, I don't know. So nostalgia is one reason. Why else would Nokia be actually starting to sell that stuff now?
Some people are fed up with all the extras that have come on.
Could be. Yeah, that's what they're for originally, right? Yeah, making phone calls instead of actually surfing the net, firing up apps, finding out where you're going, where you've been, what you're going to do at home, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, good point. Okay, they don't want all the extra functionality. That could be it too. Probably one other reason though why people might be shifting back to the old Nokia.
Strangers break their phones a lot.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, because you drop your phone enough, it's kind of expensive if it's not actually insured. Hey, plus it's annoying because you've got to get your money out. And it's probably embarrassing too. Could be it. Could be yes, because if you've been on an aircraft recently, you'll no doubt see those lovely safety videos where they say, if you drop your phone down the seat, don't touch anything, don't move your seat, call a person to help you. Because they're dead scared if you pull your seat back and break the phone, it'll snap the battery and cause a problem, yeah? It's not about you or the phone at all, it's about the battery. Yeah, that could be it. Okay, the other reason I thought of was to do with privacy. Because your phone, if your phone's you, you're trackable. Everywhere you go, that phone can track you. So that's good. I should start up on Bluetooth scanner and see it's got Bluetooth turned on. That'll really upset some people. Because if we're Bluetoothable, we're kind of hackable. Yeah, no, we won't do that now. That would be a bit embarrassing. Yeah, that is a bit of an issue for some people. They don't want to be tracked by anybody, and yet they've got a smartphone that tracks them everywhere. I guess, and like most technology, there's a positive aspect to that, and a potentially negative one. The positive one is if you're going mountain climbing and you fall over and break your leg, at least you'll be able to be found. Because we'll find the phone. Hopefully find you in time, of course, that's the whole point, right? I guess the downside is people can track you, and you might not want that. Okay? Every time you're going past a phone tower, there's a blip. You know, there's going to be a connection there. So you are trackable. Yeah, and some people might consider that an invasion of privacy. So for some people, they'd say, forget this smartphone nonsense, I don't want the extra functionality, I just want to make a phone call. Hence the resurgence of the Nokia, apart from the other reasons you guys mentioned. There's nothing really wrong with that. And again, you know, the whole idea of being tracked can be used for good or evil, right? I guess the use of evil is that people can track where you are. And you might not want that. There's a kind of a unique stalking aspect to that, right? We don't want that. What would be the positive side of that? Well, I guess when bad people do naughty things, we can track them. And then, the police can do their thing, courts can do their thing, and naughty people that you don't want around you get put away for a very long time. Those guys. Yes. I can see some people are smiling about that, so I suspect one of my colleagues has already talked about that particular case. Yeah. That was a public service, by the way. We didn't charge for that. Because we're doing good things for the rest of everybody else. Anyway, so there's sort of, I guess whatever technology you use, there's good things and bad things about it. It's how you want to use it. I'm sure you could argue the same thing about, other technology, fire, the wheel, stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, so I guess app-wise, they're available. That's a good thing if you want to do stuff. Okay. Quick, easy user interface. Well, you'd like to think so. Probably. User interfaces are interesting things, aren't they? So for what one person would say, that's great, it's intuitive, I can use it. Another person looks at it and says, that's incomprehensible, it's absolutely impenetrable, I don't know what to do. That's definitely a thing, okay? And you'll notice that Apple have been quite bolshy about that. Oh, you might not notice, but I guess in the good old days when Apple didn't have much of a market share and needed to actually make sure people built software for their boxes so they would sell, Apple were very, very good to the developer community. Since I was one of them, I kind of know this, right? They were really good about, if you had a problem, you could get in touch with them really quickly and they'd help you out. Also, you got pre-release access to all sorts of software that's about to come on the market, so you could develop stuff for it and with it, okay? So as long as you sign the appropriate, non-disclosure, blah, 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 sort of thing. So you got access to all sorts of cool stuff that was coming out on the cusp, basically. So why did Apple do that? Because they wanted to get a market share happening with their machines, okay? So pragmatism really was a good thing as far as they were concerned. But as far as we were concerned, we're saying, hey, we're kind of privileged, we get access to all sorts of cool stuff before it happens. This is really good. It meant you actually build software that would actually use those features and then build apps that would sell, that people would want. So one of the things about that is at the time, Apple produced these things called user interface guidelines, where they sort of told you about, well, if you want app, you can do your app any way you want, but we think there's a certain way of doing it, a certain style and a certain way of layout that will actually work best. And we could say that, well, that's because Apple employed people to do with user interface design that used to work for Xerox back in the day. So that's kind of why they're sort of focused on that. But again, they might say, well, if your app works the same way as everybody else's, it'll probably sell, which is good for you and good for us. So it's just interesting in those days, it was encouragement. They didn't actually tell you couldn't do it a different way. So you roll forward to now, and they don't call them they now call them human interface guidelines. There's more of them, and if you want your app to be on the store, you've got to do it. It's no, we'd like you to do this. It's pretty much, you either do this, or your app's not going on our store. So they become, as I say, quite a bit bolshy about it, and I think, in some respects there's a security aspect to that, which is probably good for apps that are on the store, but it's also a pragmatic thing about if it doesn't work the way we think it's going to work, then it actually affects our brand name if you make a weird looking app and you want to sell it, okay? That's probably where they're coming from. It's probably more security than anything else. Doesn't mean that iPhones can't be hacked. It's more that they're less problems perhaps than the competitors. Because, Android being based on Java, just asking for it really. So many ways. That's okay. It is what it is. So yeah, it's just interesting how they've changed their tune about that. Is they used to be encouraging people to do stuff and suggesting things, and now they're pretty much saying, no, you do this or it's not coming up on the store. So yeah, there's a much longer checklist now. So it's just an interesting sort of trend that they've gone through. Anyway, so it's probably a good thing, I would think. Although you could just argue that, well, if an app's rubbish and doesn't follow the guidelines, then no one's going to buy it anyway. Maybe. So, integration thing, well, it depends if you want that or not. And as we were saying before, some people prefer not to have that, maybe. So it depends on you, really, whether that's a good thing for you. Sometimes it is. Yeah, and of course you've got push marketing by use of the apps and stuff. Yeah. That's how some apps actually fund themselves, of course. And some apps, they say the app itself is free. It's the service that you use that costs the money, which is a bit different business model. And that is a clever one, by the way. So if some people want to charge more for their apps but make the service free, it's actually a bit more canny to make the apps worth almost nothing, a very little entry cost, and then make the service cost more. But, that's a whole different discussion about marketing things and what the value of things, I suppose. Plus we've got a camera and a microphone. That way so we can do selfies and photo things and talk into it. Yeah, so that almost works. Huh? You can say, Siri, do this for me. And it says, I think you wanted me to do something. Not that, stop. Yeah. I think the machine learning behind that, I recognise the way it works, I know what it is, I think it could be better than that. I mean, I think, if you hark back to first year, I'm pretty sure I showed you guys a video from about 20 years ago of a system you could just talk to it and it actually worked. And you think, if that works, why doesn't Alexa and Siri get that right every time? Ugh. Since time's marched on a bit. But anyway, it's a big deal, I suppose. And the cameras are getting better, which is probably a good thing. Unless, of course, your phone gets hacked, right? So, you know. I mean, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you find your camera going flash, 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 taking photos by itself, it's probably been hacked, right? Don't laugh. Well, one of my colleagues had that happen to them. I think just starts just taking photos in the middle of the night and think, what's going on? Why is it doing it by itself? That's a bit weird. And of course, that was an Android phone, not an iPhone. But there you go. I'm not saying it couldn't happen to an iPhone. I guess gaming, I suppose. Location awareness. Look, great thing. I mean, do you ever see anybody walking around in a foreign city now, actually using a physical map? Yes, you do. I saw 2 of them I think it was in London. That was it. So I haven't told you. So I've been jet-lagged horribly. So in the last month, I've been in Rome, I've been in Paris, I've been in London, and back to Paris. That was a family holiday. I wasn't working then. Then I went to Kenya as soon as I got back, basically to work. I just got back on Sunday. So I've been in a gazillion different time zones at different places, feeling really kind of not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. So I'm fooling you guys I'm awake so far, aren't I? You think I'm awake and I'm really not, but that's okay. I'm going to get better, right? Anyway, so really, truly, I didn't see anybody really, except for a couple of people, actually using a physical map. Most people were going, phone, where am I going, or tablet, whatever they had. Have to confess, that's what I did. I could have used Google Maps, but I actually found, and this isn't an ad for Maps.me, I just thought that Maps.me was a better alternative, because you could download the maps, you could pre-download the maps, so you had most of the stuff there ready for you to go. And you just say, without using data roaming services, find me the nearest food, find the nearest whatever, and it could show you pretty quickly. So I found that to be working pretty well for me. So most people, and of course, in the good old days, you could spot the tourist by saying, yep, person looking bewildered and holding a map. Whereas now what you see is a bunch of people holding phones, and you think, so are they just Facebooking, are they just talking to their friends, or are they using a map? You can't really tell. So that means the tourists blend in a little bit more. Probably a good thing for the tourists, yeah? That is nice. Anyway, so location awareness is definitely a thing that was coming to the forefront there for me. For anybody else, well, yeah, because you want to know where you're going, how far it takes to get there. Are you travelling by foot, by car, by tram, by whatever other mode, by plane, whatever? That is a fun thing to do, of course, to be in a foreign city and say, get me to Perth, I want to walk. And say, yeah, that'll take you 6,000 hours, and you'll be walking across the bottom of the ocean to do it. That'd be interesting, but that's what it tells you to do. Which is why I didn't use Google Maps to do this stuff, because it has some interesting ways to get places sometimes. But, you know, that's okay. Whatever works, I'd say. I guess the business about being on a mountainside and being injured, hence location awareness, is probably a good thing. But like I said, for every good use of any of these things, particularly location awareness, there's bound to be a bad use. But, you know, I guess that's the price we pay for having that stuff turned on. And I guess if you get to the stage where you're saying, I don't want to access the internet, I don't want to use any other app functions, I just want to make a phone call or send a text, that's when you start thinking, you know, the Nokia is looking pretty good. Plus it's a lot cheaper, I suppose. I don't know, is it? I suppose it must be. And I suppose you get a few of those per iPhone or per, you know, Galaxy S8 or whatever. So that means if you lose one, you're not too fussed about it. Although you can't go find my Nokia. But you can go find my internet location awareness. You can go find my iPhone. So there's lots of positives and negatives about all of this stuff. But the positive for you guys is it's a big market, it's getting bigger. And so app development-wise, there are opportunities for you guys to do all sorts of cool stuff. And just remember, just because no one else wants it right now doesn't mean it won't be the next sort of wave thing, a la Facebook or whatever. So, hey, just as an aside, don't forget, these little things you guys are all hanging on to, these little guys, whatever flavour they might be, in terms of raw computing power, it's about the same as the very first computers that ushered in the modern computing era in about the 1940s or so. So I guess in the UK the first one was Colossus, I guess followed by ENIAC in the US, right? So those particular devices, I'm going to call them that, filled up this room, each one, right? And it took probably 20 people, if not more, to look after them every day to make sure they kept on going. So these days, you have that same power in your hand, and it's in colour with a touch screen. How cool is that? So that means that we are, I guess, the stuff we do is evolving really, really quickly, which is great in lots of ways. As to what will happen in the future with these, who knows? If I could actually predict that properly, I'd buy shares in that company and form it myself. If anybody says they can predict it, yeah. If you want to believe that, I've got a bridge you can buy shares in Sydney too. It's not. I don't believe you can predict that stuff because if you could, that wouldn't be a wave. It would already be doing it. And I know, certain people predict that there might, in the future, things might be quite different with artificial intelligence or machine learning and whatnot. That's what's his name, Ray Kurzweil, right? The guy that thinks about there's going to be a technological singularity. Do we know about the singularity? You don't know about it. Well, you got a surprise coming. Whoa. Yeah. Okay, if you don't know, a guy called Ray Kurzweil says that he's looking at sort of past evidence of technology improvement around, I guess, in human history, and saying at various places in history, there's been a bit of a sort of a jump where things have improved markedly over a short space of time. And he's saying his thesis is that before that happened, no one knew it was going to happen. After it happened, people just said, yeah, duh, of course, and just use that technology. But they didn't know it was going to happen beforehand. And usually, after it happened, it changed things markedly for everybody. I don't think he used fire of the wheel as his examples, but he probably could, he was thinking of things, I suppose, like military examples particularly, or I would say latterly. I've got one. I don't know if he used this example particularly, but there's one thing in the last 1,000 years that really, really changed how humans were able to actually share information. Do you know what that thing was? Any ideas? There's one thing in the last 1,000 years that's really changed how we actually disseminate information.
I can think of many things in the last 1,000 years which have changed the way we share.
There's one thing really you can point to and say, that's the thing. The internet. Everybody says the internet. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Everybody thinks the internet because they think, things that they know about. It's actually, languages. Whoa, common language. You mean Mandarin? Paper. Oh, now we're getting there. Yeah, the printing press. The printing, you bet. So the lovely people, the lovely economists that do this sort of stuff have got this great graph of average GDP per person in the world per head of population. And if you look at it for the last 1,000 years, from the year 1000 to 2000, it's pretty much flat till you get the printing press, and then it goes, and you see if you do the derivative, there's this giant bump where the printing press happens. I'll admit the curve changes again, and you can see, yep, computing's there, and you can see the internet happening and the advent of modern technology such as smartphones. That's there on the curve, but the thing that makes the biggest change is actually the printing press. Who'd have thought that? So if they can make mistakes faster by printing stuff and saying, I've sent this stuff out to everybody, but there's an error on it. So now we can make mistakes even faster, but we can correct them faster. Does that matter? Well, it's interesting, isn't it? What I've observed is that when an error gets made and you correct it, people hang on to the old stuff. When you say, that was actually wrong, they say, no, because whatever was out there beforehand fits their existing frame of reference. And if you try and change that by saying, no, there is new data or there's an error, you would think they would say, thanks for fixing that. You're absolutely right. I'll just change whatever I was doing. They don't actually do that. Again, this is really a question for Craig Spielman and his psychology colleagues about why this happens. People don't do that. They hang on to the existing frame of reference and refuse to budge.
That was not related to this. I can't remember what it was called.
There is something like that. I don't know what it's called. Yeah, but people do that. If you say, sorry, I guess global warming's an example of that maybe. Say, here's some data. It's a happening thing. No, it's not. Yeah, I think it is. No, it's not. Here's some data. Who did that? Brian Cox would talk to someone about that. Who did he talk to? It was on TV a while ago. It was last year. Coxie did this thing where he spoke to someone and was it a politician? I can't remember. But basically he said, well, there's all this evidence. And the person said, nah, that's all fake. And so Coxie sort of said, so you're saying that NASA is faking up these records and that for the last 100 years or whatever it was, 70 years, and you're saying that the Department of Meteorology in the UK is like faking records for the last 100 years. You think so? And this person wouldn't budge. They just said, no, that's all just fake. They didn't say fake news, because that's a newer thing, right? But that's what they meant. I thought, nah. Coxie's a pretty smart dude. I think he's got this right. Yeah, so that was really weird. I can't remember who I'm sure he either interviewed someone or it might have been on Q&A. Was he on QA? He was on some show where someone came up and said this and they said, no, that's all rubbish, it's just not true. And he said, well, here's this evidence. Let me show you on my whatever, I'll just dial it up now. Are you saying that's just wrong? And he said, yeah, it's wrong. So, I can't remember who it was. I think it was an Australian politician. It must have been if it was on on good old Q&A. But it was really bizarre. This person just dug straight in and said, I'm not going to believe that. So even though this evidence says otherwise, you don't want to look at the data again and say there's an alternative explanation? Nope. No. So it's really weird. Strange thing. Well, there you go. People are strange. I'm not sure what that effect is called, but it's definitely a thing.
That was actually the reason for it. I just can't remember.
Yeah, people are stupid. People are stupid.
Not quite. That was actually an evolution. Their reason for it. So, just can't remember the name for it or something.
There is a name. I think. So I'll go with people are stupid for now, but not you guys, because you're all smarter than that. But yeah, just interesting how people just didn't want to move, and you think, that's the thing. Don't go there. It's funny how it was Coxie, but So yeah, world-famous physicist just says, this is the thing, and they said, no, it's not. I just can't remember the show. I have a feeling it was Tony Jones and QA from last year, but I can't remember. One of those sorts of things. Whole panel of people, and Coxie was the star because he was the out-of-towner and all that sort of thing. It evolved into a bit of not quite name calling, but this whole thing about, I think it was global warming or something like that. It's just interesting how you get new data and they don't want to look at it. But yeah, I guess the positive side is if you do make a mistake, you can fix it really quickly, which is great, and push it out. So that's a really good thing, except when people don't want to look at it. Because whatever you've done now doesn't fit whatever their worldview looks like now. And it's bizarre how people just don't actually look at that again and say, okay, my preconceptions were actually wrong. That's right, and I'll just actually readjust my world to fit that, because that's what everybody else believes, because it seems to be correct based on existing evidence. They go, no. Not going to touch that. Will that affect us in terms of app development? You never know. It depends what your app does, actually. You never know. Don't say that's nothing to do with this. It probably has. Politics drives all sorts of weird stuff, including what gets sold and what doesn't sometimes in terms of apps. So yeah, you never know. All right, but there's all sorts of good things about that, we hope. That means we want to do this and we could sell stuff if we wanted to. Or at the very least, develop stuff and pass a unit at university. That's also okay too. All right. So these cool little devices are largely handheld. Okay. The reason I was talking about the future there is because the Kurzweil guy says that in the future, what's going to happen is, as far as he can tell, the next big thing in technology is this singularity where we get a connection between machine, as in artificial intelligence, and humanity. The idea behind that is that we'll connect up somehow to the global AI, and then we'll be able to think problems and have them solved. How we plug in, who knows? whether we get physical devices in ourselves, whether we connect the, I don't know. No one really does. But he's saying that event is coming in the next 20 or 30 years, okay? And that's his evidence. He's saying there's little pieces like the printing press, this happening, that shows that that's going to happen now. And we don't notice it because we're at the cusp. I don't know. For every person that says, he's the man, he's got it, he absolutely nailed that one, be another person who says, complete rubbish, these things are just happenstance, there's no evidence right now that's going to happen now. The argument against, by the way, has got to do with the strength of the AI that we have. Well, you guys would know that we don't really have strong AI, it's really weak AI. It's good for certain types of problem spaces, but yeah, deep learning isn't quite there yet. It's not able to, just because Watson can actually beat someone at Jeopardy does not mean that it can think out world-scale problems and get them right, yet, okay? So we'll see in the future. If the AI does become strong AI and be good enough to do that, well, that'd be cute. Then we can all connect up and talk to it and say, hey, global AI, I want to solve a problem. I don't know. What problem do you want to solve?
Global warming.
Global warming, perfect. Okay, you'll say, AI, solve global warming. And it'll say, this is exactly what you have to do. And we'll say, thank you, global AI, and we'll all go and do it, and we'll be sweet. Of course, if the answer is, you're all moving to Mars, it'll be a bit different. But there'll be some solution that will fit those parameters, and we'll say, that's cool, we would have never thought of that ourselves. So the AI is supposed to have, I guess, be able to think better than we can. And I don't mean better numerically, because they can already do that, right? It's not a numerical computation thing, it's about reasoning about how to solve problems. How cool will that be? You can say, solve global warming. World peace, let's have world peace. How do we do that, global AI? And we'll say, yep, do the following 5 things. Or whatever that might be. And we go do it, and we have world peace, or whatever.
Complications involved with having it being smarter than itself.
Yes. Therein lies the rub, hey? So it's all very well to have a machine smarter than we are, but who's to say that once that's true, that the machine will have the same goals that we do? And if the machine has different goals, what are we? Are we just like in the way, or just something to be brushed aside, or are we something that's actively against the machine, which is actually achieving its goals? That's kind of interesting, isn't it? Which leads down the path of, well, as Led Zeppelin said, there are 2 paths you can go by, right? They were bad. So what happens? Either basically we get the sort of HAL 9000 thing, sorry Dave, I'm not going to do that. Or maybe we're just in the way and it rubs us out. Who knows? I'll be back, and all that sort of thing, Who knows? I know there's a couple of solutions to that, by the way, of course. If you guys read sci-fi, you would no doubt have read Asimov's stuff about robots and whatnot. And he's got the 3 laws of robotics, right, that sort of fix all that. So, if you're not sure what I'm talking, you can always Google that later. If you Google Asimov and 3 laws, you'll get it. Well, what was that? A plot device so you could write all these novels about robots, which is kind of cute. But because anybody looking at logic will say, there's some holes in that, but it's okay. It's a plot device for writing a novel, or 6, which is fine. But basically, the laws prevent robots from harming people or themselves, or doing things that would cause people to be harmed in certain ways. So which is really good for us. Okay. So you either have to embed the 3 laws or something similar into the AI so it can't hurt us.
So what do we define as we can't hurt us?
Yes.
Because suddenly you might have such an AI suddenly just become absolutely useless, but it can't actually do anything beneficial for you specifically.
There's 2. I think, how did Asimov do it? His 0th law, right? He said you can't do things that actually hurt humanity as a whole. So that way they're able to say, if I do this, if I kick you, that'll save the rest of everybody else. So I'll just kick you, it'll hurt me, but in my first law or whatever, but I'll be able to do this to save humanity or something, That's kind of an interesting utilitarian argument. So utilitarianism is a sort of a branch of philosophy that's popular a couple of 100 years ago. And in theory, it sounds perfectly great. It's one of those things that says, let's see, utilitarianism says you do the greatest good for the most number of people. And like most philosophies, sounds great in theory, but in practice, it really sucks. You think, does it? Sounds like a really good thing to have, right? Greatest good for most number of people. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's leading towards world peace, right? Not quite. So if I can give you a more concrete example, just suppose, I just need some people here to do this with, and these are the people because you're in the front row. No, it's okay, it's non-invasive, it's cool, right? So just suppose that, okay, so I'm a perfectly healthy person, but regrettably, for the sake of argument, you guys are not. And we'd say, hey, you might need a kidney, you need a new heart, and you need a lung. You got to cut out those smoking. Okay, you need a new lung, whatever. Okay. So what utilitarianism says is that we're the greatest good, greatest number of people. So we could kill me and harvest my organs and save 3 people who are about to die. So what should we do then? These guys are saying, sweet, I get to live. And I'm thinking, I'm not too keen on this suddenly, this philosophical argument. I'm really thinking this is not great at all. See what I mean? That's what it actually means. You think, nah, Barleys, that's not working at all. See? Like these things don't work in practice a lot. So that led to some sort of a modified utilitarianism or something later on. Anyway, so yeah, there you go. So what happens with this AI if it doesn't like us or just doesn't care about us? So another sci-fi writer called Stanislav Lem wrote an interesting story about that, where basically we built an AI, he built another one. And what happened is that the second one just disappears. And we try and ask the other one what happened. And the other one can barely talk to us. And sort of says, well, look, I can't really explain this to you in a framework you'd actually understand. So he says, I sort of know what happened to the other one, vaguely. It's improved itself to the point where it can do other things, whatever those things, in different dimensions or whatever, but I can't really explain it to you in words you would understand, sorry. And that's sort of where the story finishes, so saying, yeah, I'm working towards that, says the other AI. I'm trying to better myself till I can do that too, but I'm not there yet. And you guys, yeah, I can't really explain it to you in a way you get it. That sort of, which is interesting, hey. So maybe if we have got a smart AI and ask it questions, it'll give us answers we don't actually understand. That's not going to help too much, is it? But, you know, as we say, first of all, we're not there yet because we don't have strong AI. So we can't even make a car drive itself properly yet. But we will get there for that at least. That's a bounded problem, really. Driving a car, that is. Solving world peace is a much more difficult problem, perhaps. So we will get there. But, you know, and how we connect, will we actually use these guys? Well, look, at the very least, I'm pretty sure that I'll be talking to my grandkids and they'll say, so Granddad, so what was the mouse for? Or what was this keyboard business? Because we still use analogs right now, right? We still actually have touch screens and we still use a tapper keyboard on the touch screen. That stuff probably won't be here in 20 years. Why would it? So if you go back a few years, this stuff didn't remember 10 years ago, this didn't exist. So who knows what it'll be like? I just know it'll be different, whatever it is. So the apps will be different. Probably, I mean, maybe in the future what will happen, instead of actually typing things to build apps, you'd think about them and say, hey, I want to build an e-commerce app. So I will need the following modules or the following bits. Make them for me. And the AI just puts it together for you. And you say, that's pretty good. Let's run it. Let's compile the app. And you think about it and it compiles it. I have no idea. I just know it'll be different. If I can find it, I don't know if I can get it, but I know that I once went to an Apple event where they sort of showed this really cool black and white video from like the 1960s. And it wasn't them, it was actually Xerox talking about stuff they were doing in the 1960s. And Apple sort of showed it in the 80s, 90s, saying, look how far technology has come. So what could you see in the 1960s, right? You could see people sort of looking at a computer screen that was black and white. It had these things called windows. Pretty good for 1967, hey? And then they had this thing called a pointing device. Pointing device, which we now call a mouse. They didn't call it a mouse, they called it a pointing device. We used the pointing device to shift windows and shift context. And I thought, wow, that's a Macintosh in 1980 something. How cool is that? But they had it way back then. Probably though, it wouldn't be a machine you put on your desktop for $2,000. Okay, that's what Apple actually did, by the way, in 1984. It said you can have that for $2,000 on your desktop. That was the thing they did that's pretty special. Because before then it would have cost a gazillion more, and not everybody could have one. Because, you know, there's always that famous quote about, you know, the world market for computers. So how many computers will we need? I think we'll need like 5, yeah? Wasn't that Thomas Watson from IBM? Back in the dawn of computing, when he was asked about this, he said, well, how big's this market? I said, I don't know, maybe 5 computers. Because that's all, because they saw big mainframes that took up the whole room, armies of people, the whole thing. And for those computers, there's still a bigger market than that, but you never know. Yeah, and was it the guy from Digital Equipment who said, who'd want a computer in their house? How dumb is that? That was just before the advent of the IBM PC in 1982. And look at it now. And now it's gone from that to smartphones everybody carries. Wow. So in some sense, Kurzweil's got a good argument when he says, no, it'll be different and we're connected globally somehow. He may be right, we don't really know. But I'm just saying that whatever it is, it'll be different, and app development will also change rapidly, I would think, because once we've got that, why do you need to actually type anything? You talk to it, surely, and say, build me a whatever. And because we'd have those software components already prefabbed, it'd be more or less a prefab building thing. Don't see why not. There'll always be a need for someone to write the compiler to do that. Oh, no, there won't be, because the AI, you write an AI that writes compilers then, so you won't need that either. Which leads us to the whole business about them being smart and linear. Well said.
One of the things is that not everybody speaks in normal English.
You mean
Not
like
all of our
you mean like text speak or? What?
Well, in part, the language changes constantly all the time. Trying to get an AI to work with this ever-changing construct seems like something that is slightly difficult.
Slightly difficult.
I mean,
Yeah, it's no harder than world peace. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, I see what you mean. That thing that I talked about before, where the system where the woman just spoke to the system and it just did stuff. She'd say, "I want the second choice," or "This is my voice print. Verify me," and all that sort of stuff. That system, when I saw it, spoke recognised since I spoke. It recognised 9 languages. 3 of them were English. So it was quite funny. So I'm presuming that meant some variant of American English, some variant of English, and presumably Australian English or something close to it. I don't know. Didn't find out about that so much, but I thought that was funny. The variants were so different that it recognised them separately.
it's a greater thing some other countries in the modern different languages. But yeah, dialect itself.
Yeah. Not such a big deal for Australia, I suppose, since the dialect doesn't change that much across the country. There are some words that do change, and some constructs that do change a little bit, but not that much. You can still be understood, but plunk a Glaswegian in the south of England and get them to correspond with someone. It's kind of interesting watching what's going on there. Keeping languages pure is quite an interesting. Languages don't. They modify, they mutate, unless you're not at the centre of the language. So if you want to find out how Gaelic is supposed to be spoken, you go to the Outer Hebrides in Scotland. You don't go to Glasgow, because that's the sort of people will be. Or you don't go to Dublin, because they'll say that's how it's. I'm pretty sure in Glasgow, television's a word in Gaelic, but with Gaelic orthography, it said television, but you won't get that nowhere because it's different. So yeah, how do I know about that? Because I once met a guy from Quebec who went to Paris, and I said, "Oh, well, you speak French. How does that go for you?" He said, "It's interesting. What they said was, your phraseology is very quaint, but we can still understand you just." So what had happened is the central language in Paris had mutated over the centuries, but in Quebec, far away, they kept it as pure as possible because that's what actually seems to happen. And so, yeah, it was really weird. He said, "Yeah, I used phraseology they thought was really quaint because it's hundreds of years old." So I guess the rough equivalent would be someone speaking as Elizabethan English to us. So sort of Shakespearean English and saying, "I kind of know what you're saying, but it's really weird." But So yeah, who knows what will happen in the future. So yeah, the global AI will fix all that, remember? It'll be able to do all that because it'll have multiprocessor, cloud-based, something or other. Who knows? But definitely that will change app development because, you'll see that even now with Corona is you don't compile it. The engine's actually off-site. So when you go and compile it, you've got your little sort of component on your machine, but the compilation's done off-site at Corona and it sits back to you. So good use of cloud-based systems, I would say. It schedules the job, just does it, you get it back straight away as far as you can tell. It's as if you were doing it yourself. The Camtasia rendering ring is a different thing, as I said. How that does it, who knows. Anyway, so mobile can move around. It's a computing device. Yes, you can atom subtract if you want to, sure. Touch input, all that sort of stuff. And wireless connectivity. Yeah. And again, I suppose, pre-iPhone, had you gone to someone and said, "I've got this really cool idea, this is what's going to happen," they would have said, "Who's going to do that? Look, we can do that already. That's called, a computer on a desktop. You want to make a phone call? That's called a Nokia. We're good. It's amazing what people pick up on, isn't it? You never know. SMS is a good example of that, right? Remember, SMS was meant to be a thing for engineers to actually do diagnostic stuff. And look at what happened there. So you never know what will be the next wave in that sense. So I just know it'll be different and not what to expect, which is why it's fun, I suppose. Unless, of course, the AI takes over the world and doesn't do what we want. That's a whole different thing. So, okay, you heard it from me. Watch out for that, okay? Just don't be one of those people, right? Anyway, so what else? Oh, examples. Fairly obvious ones. Phones, tablets, wearables. Aren't wearables the thing of today or yesterday? Fitbits and likewise. And I guess Apple Watches and equivalents. And head-mounted sort of VR displays. They're a bit freaky, right? So you might. So we've got some of those in the school. So if you wanted past Martin's office next to mine, you might have actually used that possibly. Freaky.
Smartwatches would be the other thing. You have to have a mobile on you anyway.
Yeah. Or you maybe just use the watch for all that. I don't know. Not being a smartwatch user, or I don't know. But you know. Yeah, maybe it's just maybe it just be a fad thing, or maybe people will say, you know what, we can all do it on the watch, so you don't need a phone anymore. So, and the argument might be, you know, the watch is attached to you, so you can't lose it, and because it's a bit smaller, there's less chance you're actually whacking it and breaking it or dropping it out of your pocket. So it's better.
That's not really cool what I was told. Do you actually need the iPhone on you in order to use this?
I don't know. Anybody an Apple Watch user could tell us about that?
No, but Michelle has one. Michelle Ellis.
Oh, right.
18, and she has one. She leaves her phone in her office and she can walk around up to level 4 and do all the rest of it. But she has to do it. She doesn't have to carry a phone with her.
Oh, okay. But you still need the phone somewhere.
The main purpose is for fitness, so you can
Yeah.
stop music and check the time dates and stopwatches and all sort of stuff that tracks it.
I guess then you've got sort of the Fitbit versus smartwatch argument and all that sort of thing. Yeah, I don't know. Well, in the future, we might have implants that will fix all that. And 3D displays in front of us. Which again, you know, there's always lots of good uses of that. We have 3D displays now in cars and aircraft and whatnot. You already got that sort of technology. But for personal use, that could be really cool. Maybe the map shows in front of you. And because your personal map, it goes, blip, you walk 300 metres this way, I can see you walking, but you're at the spot, boom, you're done. So there could be lots without holding a phone in front of you. So there could be a good use of that. What would be a bad use of that technology? Adware. They're advertising to you all the time about stuff they want to sell you. Yeah, because all that privacy removal stuff, all that stuff about privacy, because they're collecting data about you, it'll learn about what you like to do and it'll push market to you. That is, of course, why, who are they? The fridge people, the people with the internet fridge. Was that Samsung? Can't remember. Had the internet fridge? I think so. One of those firms, right? You think, why do you want an internet fridge? What's the point of that? Who wants to go to their fridge and do stuff like that? That's not what it's for. It's so they can actually track, because everything you've got in the fridge is trackable via RFID tags. They can tell when you pull stuff out of the fridge and put it back again. So when you're running out of goods they want to track on, so I don't know, cans of Coke or something, it'll say, ping, you're running out of Coke. Do you want to go and put that on your shopping list? Or shall we order it for you through, I don't know, Coles Online or something, you know? So in some respect, it's meant to actually augment the experience and meant to help you by taking that drudgery task off you, right? But on the other hand, it'll also push market to you because it'll say, I've seen that, you know, you seem to drink a lot of that stuff and not a lot of that, so we'll sell that stuff to you instead. Who knows? So there could be some, I guess, not so great aspects to that. But you know, the reason they got into that was so they could actually use that data to push market to you, not because you could actually access internet on the fridge. Who cares about that? It was more about other aspects of a home automation system that they could actually sell to you, I think. Smart move on their part. Probably a bit ahead of the curve there, but smart move on their part. All right.
There are problems with that though. A mate of mine set his up so it would automatically fill orders.
Yep.
Which was a big mistake because his fridge wasn't 32 heads of lettuce when he started to run low.
32.
Because it just checked it. It was just like, oh, you're running low on lettuce, I'll order it. Oh, you're running low on lettuce, I'll order it. And then just every minute for half an hour.
Cool.
It was a big problem.
Well, problem or opportunity? A lot of salad happening that week, right? Watch your 30 lettuce. What are you going to do with them?
Exactly.
Make lots of salad. Yeah. Invite your friends around for a big salad party. Yes. Then you have to get to order lots of meat to go with that so you can barbecue it, right? And you set up the meat-eating people as well, so everybody's happy. Oh my. Yeah, there are, I think it's quite funny, there are a couple of little lessons about that sort of thing. I think when Walmart started looking at tagging things, Walmart being, the world's biggest, I guess, store, that sort of thing, so when Walmart say do it, all their suppliers just do it. Well, they use the Pareto principle, 80-20, so they told 20% of their suppliers to say, you will now tag all your goods, we don't deal with you, which is 80% of their market. So, yeah, okay, sure. So that's why you have tags in biscuits now, the little RFID tag in packets of biscuits and whatnot. So anyway, so they did a prototype of this, a trial of this, where they basically said, okay, we're trying to look at logistics and shipping of goods and where they come from and making sure it's store management to try and make sure we get the optimum, I guess, optimise where the goods go to the right store to make sure that they get what they need, so we can ship out those 32 head of lettuce to that guy, or whatever they're doing, right? So they said that it worked really well in lots of ways because they could tag the goods from the trucks to the pallet, off the pallets, into the warehouse, out again to the right trucks, off they go. Except for one thing where they had a situation where I think it was a packet of biscuits or something went in and out of the warehouse like 20 times a day. They couldn't figure out what's going. Why are these biscuits going in and out of the place? What's with the biscuits? And it turned out the tag had fallen off and got stuck on a pallet. And as the pallet went around the place, that's where the biscuits were, because that's all it knew. It didn't know it was a pallet, just knew it was biscuits, or whatever, something like that. So they had a few little things to iron out about that. But eventually they stuck with it. Hence, that's why the cost of the tags went down to, used to be like 5 or 10 cents US, now it's about a couple of cents or a cent or something, because they were so big they just said, you guys will do this. And all their suppliers did. So, but you can sort of see from their point of view, it does make sense to be able to track stuff. You can actually manage stuff a bit better then. Rather than guessing about who needs the lettuce or the biscuits. So in terms of tracking stuff and knowing what people actually need, kind of works for them. But yeah, I guess there's the privacy aspects of that too, I suppose. I mean, you want your fridge telling you what to do? Maybe you don't, So it's a little bit like those things about, when they do surveys of people for the purpose of looking at channels that you watch, like the TV channels and whatnot. In the good old days, and you used to have to write that down, they'd hire, like McNair Anderson would say, I want you to be involved in the survey, do you mind filling out this form? You fill out this paper form that says, yes, we watch ABC. Yes, of course we do. ABC. But nowadays, of course, it's automatic. So instead of saying, we watch ABC, no, you don't. You're watching something silly, like, something silly on some other commercial channel. So I can tell what you're doing. Maybe you don't want them to do that. I don't know. So you can always opt out, I suppose. Although what's in the news at the moment is those opt-in, opt-out services that are paid, the premium services for phones. Got a bit of news recently about that sort of thing, about kids using their parents' phones or whatever, and accidentally subscribing to services and stuff like that. That's a bit of a problem. So yeah, a bit devious when it's a third party that's involved. Because if you've been following that, telcos are saying, Barleys, not us, we're just the enabler for this to happen. Said, no, not quite. I wouldn't argue that with a lawyer if I were you. They're going to be in trouble. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, it's a thing. PDAs, don't we actually use those anymore? Like Blackberries and stuff? I don't really think so. Come to my office, I've got a heap of them. Because every time Peter goes by, he drops one in the office and says, here's another one. I don't want any of these. Get rid of this rubbish, Put a box full of that sort of stuff. Handheld gaming consoles. Yeah, well, I suppose that will go to the Y side because we'll have head-mounted displays and then we'll have the virtual display in front of you whenever you want to do something. There won't be any need for a TV screen. Or there will. It'll just be a virtual screen, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Something will happen. And hence the etc. So whatever it'll be something different, which is good for us. And right now we've got inputs of touch screens and styli and whatnot, all of which will disappear at some stage and we'll just be doing something different. We've already got systems now where you can look at something and it does something, right? I mean, largely that's to help people with quadriplegia and whatnot actually have things work for them. But in the future, that could be mass marketed, where people will just say, you don't actually need to do too much of touching anything. You just look at it, and the contextual aware AI will fix that for you and do whatever you want, because it learns what you like to do, right? It learns your patterns. Right now, we've got keyboards, real or virtual, okay? And buttons for the moment. And we've got an accelerometer. That's a cool thing. You can do lots of good stuff with that. And a compass. So all those things right now are pretty good. GPS for doing all sorts of cool things, knowing where you are, mostly, depending on the GPS system you use or want to use, or whatever, given there's several choices there. So lots of cool things. But you can see that changing quite a bit, actually, because there won't be any need for a keyboard or a touch screen if you just look at something and figure it out. That's all to help you with your Google car, right? Or whatever technology car comes along. You know that thing we were talking about a bit before, about to do with the utilitarianism? So a couple of months ago at Engineers Australia, we were talking a bit about the Google car, or smart driving, driverless car sort of thing. And someone said, there's a standard case there where you can see why you don't want to use this technology. And I said, what's the standard case? Apparently they're fluffing about, worried about things like, so you're in your, say, Google car, it's driving you home, and your home happens to be up a mountain or something. So it gets around the corner of the mountain, as in the roadway, and it's a blind corner. So around the corner, we see 5 drunk people wandering across the road. What should the car do? And they were trying to argue that the car should just immediately steer off the road, down the ravine, and kill you, because it's better to kill you than kill 5 people. What? No, they're driving. It should be on the road. I think it should plough through those people and save you, because it's the car's job to save you. Which was an interesting discussion after that, believe me. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I don't particularly want to die because some drunk idiot's walking across the road. That's their business. They're not supposed to be walking across the road in the middle of the night, across a mountain. Terrible of me, I know, but I want to live.
Then again, whether that sort of circumstance will be necessary by the time we release this thing.
Well, my argument is that the use of such technology will reduce fatalities anyway across the board, because if people aren't making those decisions, if the machine can make a better choice to say, if I brake now, we won't smash into the car in front of us, there's no accident, therefore no one goes to hospital. ER departments relax, insurance goes down, the cars don't get angry at each other like people do. It's all pretty cool. And I guess from a personal point of view, if you want a beverage before you go home, you can do that because you're not driving the car. So it won't be a big deal. So I think most of the impediment seems to be about the legal aspect of who actually is driving the car. So hopefully, generally, you might say, well, we're still killing 5 people. Well, that's better than 300 a year. Better to kill 5 than 300 at the moment. So maybe on balance, it's a better alternative. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's better. So yeah, I don't know. Have a think about that. What do you want your car to do? Whatever make it might be. So yeah. And of course you might say, well, what's that got to that development? Well, much like you've got Uber or whatever right now to call up a car, why wouldn't you do that for the driverless cars? So you need an app for driverless cars. Because, first of all, why own a car? Wouldn't a better business model be, there's a pile of Google cars out there, I just need to rent it for the time it takes me to get home, and after that I don't really care what happens to it. So it's likely that car ownership will decline. Why not? Why own one? Of course, that does mean that if you just rent a car for whatever you want, much as the advent of, I guess, people scanning goods by themselves in supermarkets has meant there's been less of a need for checkout people, there's been less of a need for taxi drivers, yeah? Because the driverless car will drive you, right? All right. So what you need for Apple, right? But it'll be the one that says, driverless car, come and get me. Take me to here.
Then again, you probably still own the car simply because you can't guarantee what the rate of renting is going to be.
Sure. And I guess there'll be a special range just for those people. I know who you're talking about. And for Craig, there will be, you can say, yep, you can go to the middle of nowhere. We'll fly, there'll be special tours. We'll fly to the middle of the Alice Springs. And we'll say, there's a big straight roadway. Get in your muscle car, your GTHO Phase 3 Falcon from 1971. And you can drive it at 20 k's an hour up there as long as you want and drive it back. there will be opportunities for that sort of thing. But it'll be a nice little business, no doubt, I should imagine. So there you go. There will be things like that. But for everybody else, it'll be, just get in the drill. It'll drive you to the place you can get out and you're done, I suspect. So there you go. It'll all be different. Hopefully better. Because seriously, if you have less accidents, that's less road trauma, less accidents, that's better for hospitals, better for insurance, better for people. So what's not to like about that? As long as we can trust the AI that runs the car to do the right thing. Has anybody had a go at the bus in South Perth yet? No? Yeah? No?
I don't have any reason.
Except to just try it out. No, of course, no one's got a reason to go to South Perth at all except to try this bus out. Of course not. I'm saying if you've gone to do it. Oh, okay. I haven't done it yet myself, but one of my colleagues has. And it was an interesting experience. It's not quite there yet. And they've still got a person there to help out in case anything goes wrong. And whilst he was there, it did need kind of a little reboot to the system. So I believe those things use, I think he said Windows 7. And the way the operator got in touch with the Windows 7 OS was via a wireless keyboard. Ouch. Just asking to be hacked, really. Not that you should do that, by the way. Just observe what happens. I'm not suggesting I should go do that, but that wasn't a great thing. I thought, nah, you don't want to do it that way. So eventually technology will move on and that'll be fixed, I should think. But it's not quite there yet. But we've got all the bits. I mean, we've got GPS, we've got cars that can drive themselves. I mean, the first DARPA Grand Challenge was pretty easy because it was, 10 miles down the road, you just have to avoid a 45-gallon drum in the middle of the road. So not too bad. And the second challenge, urban environment, and the car had to avoid pedestrians and do a reverse park. That's pretty much why your Ford Focus can do a reverse park by itself now. So lots of good tech coming out of that for cars. But I'm sure we'll get there. And it should be good because less road rage, less accidents, we hope. Better fuel economy. If there is an accident, the car can tell the road will tell us, and our car will go out the way and choose a different route. Should all be good, we hope. Well, we'll see. Anyway, moving on. How are we going for time? Wow, I should wrap this up. When's the shoot? 3:30, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, we should wrap this up. You guys get a break, sorry. Anyway, all right, really quickly. I/O devices, obvious ones, blip, 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 blip. And what else? Output. We had input, now we've got output. Fairly obvious. Yeah. Oh wow, there's a raft of stuff here. I can't believe there's so many slides. Ish. Okay. Well, okay. Yes, it has stuff. Obviously, no surprise there. System on a chip, more for embedded systems, but sure. There's one there that does stuff. Okay. What else? Obvious choices there. BlackBerry, Windows 10 mobile. Really? Okay. Sure. Why not? The market. This is a whole different discussion, by the way, at market share, which I'll just leave you with a thought about that, and I'll wrap this up. Where does that come from? Who says they've got 60% of market share? What does market share mean? Does that mean number of devices sold? Number of active devices? So what I'm saying is, if you just chucked it out and it's sitting on a rubbish tip somewhere, does that count in that percentage? Or is it only active devices in use that are connected? That's a different stat. So, and is market share defined by number of devices? Or is it defined by, let's say, market capitalisation? If that's the case, Apple win hands down, right? Easy. So it depends what you call market share, so how you define it. So just sort of, again, trying to make you wary of those sorts of stats. Just say, what does that mean exactly? How is it defined? So it's worthwhile looking that sort of stuff up and saying, if you do it a different way, it's the same pie, but you cut it quite differently, depending on who you want to talk about. So yeah, careful with that market share business. It's not necessarily, you've got to read between the lines with that one, or get some clarification of what that actually means and how it was defined. Which is why I've sort of said here, 28, really? Maybe, it depends how you define that. Anyway, currently it's 9.3. Whoa, we've got to change that. What's it now, 10.33? I think I should fix that. No, well, I'll make a little note to note to self. Go fix that. I don't know about that. Anybody have a Windows 10 mobile? Anybody care to admit that? Just checking. Ah, that's all right. Yeah, well, whatever. Funny thing about C# is that, which one is that? Is it one of the systems I mentioned, but was it Funk or the other one? They make a big thing about saying you can develop things in C# and not have to do it in Objective-C or any other language. So, what exactly is the benefit again? If you've already got a system that works, why do you need to change? Just doing it in C# isn't actually a reason, unless you're already an existing C# developer and you don't want to change. That's a reason. Or you've got a large code base already that's already in C# that you can utilise. Otherwise, there's no particular reason for making that a selling point, I thought. Again, I'm not looking C# as a language, it's more the way they were sort of selling the whole thing. It's kind of weird. All right. Wow. Very quickly, so maybe we want to have a break. Trade-offs. Well, yes, obviously. We've already had to discuss this cross-platform business, and then that's why, really. So there is a trade-off, but, you know, you've got to sort of balance that a little bit. Using remote services, obviously. Mostly we're going to talk about what's on the phone and a little bit on the back-end cloud database stuff. That is true. That last point is not true. That unit doesn't actually exist. I would like it to, but it doesn't at the moment. So, using Android. Well, particularly in this case, using Corona. So we don't have to use Android, and we don't have to use iOS, but we can actually use Corona because it targets both platforms, which is rather nice. So, Corona is the go for us because it works. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, so as I said, there are others that I've mentioned already. Well, I hope that's been interesting, possibly useful. You guys have been very patient. Go have a break or something, and I'll catch up with you guys at in the tube at 3:30. Well, you will do something magic like do Hello World or just get started anyway. So that's all right, though. All right, thanks, guys.